Quote, "Even in microcosm, the universe is vast beyond comprehension." Charles Austin Miller on Quora. Okay, time for some fun facts. Quote, "If our sun was the size of a dust mote, much smaller than a grain of sand, then our planetary solar system, not including the Kuiper Belt and Oort cloud, would be about the diameter of a coffee saucer. The next nearest planetary star system, Proxima Centauri, would be another coffee saucer placed about a city block away. That gives you an approximate idea of how far apart star systems are in our own galaxy. Now, if you placed 100 billion coffee saucers on a flat plane, each more or less a city block apart from its neighbors, the collective of coffee saucers would span the entire continent of North America. And we're not even talking about depth, just surface area. Thus, North America would represent the apparent disk of the Milky Way galaxy. So if our sun was the size of a dust mote, and the Milky Way galaxy was proportionally the size of North America, then the next nearest galaxy, Andromeda, would be about half the distance that the moon is away from us. So this is one of my favorite terms that I learned from getting into sciences a few years ago, called bilateral symmetry. And what this means to usually represent is the idea that most creatures are the same on one side as they are on the other, in some regards, in our muscular structure and in our skeletal structure and in some of our organs, but the rest of our organs are not. There are parts of our bodies that are not symmetrical for very good reasons. So this is another cool thing that kind of ties into universal embodiment, or this at least from the perspective of trying to connect with other creatures and other organisms on a metaphorical and neurophysiological scale. People that study physiology already see the world through this lens, and it's a really interesting and fun lens to see the world through. One that you would acquire from spending a few months, like six months to a year or so, learning the basics of biophysiology or just physics in the world. But a clear example of bilateral symmetry is when we engage in dance, like when we're doing these motions especially, and any activity that involves equal motion from both sides of the body, like what I'm doing now. So it's a really entertaining and engaging way to interact with the world when we can embody our biophysiological constraints and abilities. One of the ways that natural selection set us up to work is with this natural ability to do these similar motions based off of this bilateral symmetry that spans our muscular system. So you can really notice these when you're trying to do a few specific activities, like conducting an orchestra or swimming or doing gymnastics, spinning poi. When you're swimming and doing things like the breaststroke, it feels very natural. You see professional swimmers doing it as a primary method and then switching to the also similar motion of doing these windmills. It's very easy to tap into that and focus and zone in and go hard, because you can tap into a natural flow state, I propose, that makes it easier because you're using this already naturally set up method. You can think of it like playing keys straight up the piano. If you look at the motor cortex and you see the homunculus design, you can think of it like pressing buttons on that, going straight along the on both sides of the motor cortex, just going blue. So this is going to sound super woo-woo, but allow me to use this flowery language. One can embody and enact the universe awakening to itself through fire dancing. Allow me to elaborate, and perhaps demonstrate. Basic physics has many fun concepts that are easily demonstrable through flow arts. Now, I've described centripetal and centrifugal forces in previous videos, which you can see here. But another fun framework to put oneself in is the notion of embodying one's physiology and neurology. And having this knowledge of our neurophysiology and neurobiology can enhance our experience with the flow state. In my opinion, that's definitely been the case, because it allows me to be very, very precise about how I use my body and think ahead more. The self-awareness practices definitely help with that. The reflection on my own physical, doing the meditations where you go through each muscle and all that kind of thing, that really helps. So when I do moves like the backstroke or the breaststroke, I am more at ease mentally, is the way to think of it. Similarly, when I go to do, I guess just spins, what are they called? I don't know. When I go to do moves like the butterfly or moves like this triple beat spin jank, I'm more at ease. This doesn't require as much effort. But when I go to do moves like this anti-spin and moves that require motion that is different in each arm, I am put in more of a struggle. Now, this is the phenomenon that drummers experience when they struggle with just getting that one weird section down. This is a fun move I made up a while ago. I call it the Rings of Saturn, which is also a great death metal band. These are all super fun ways to integrate with our bodies, connecting our minds and bodies with the forces of nature in real time. This is a way for us to look at describing, embodying, and enacting universal embodiment from a 4E cognitive science perspective, I guess. I have no idea what I'm talking about, don't listen to me. Getting to know ourselves, our human vessels, at all levels, including that of distributed cognition, and the accumulation of matter in the universe that is able to finally perceive its own matter, and also how that matter interacts with other matter, emotionally, cognitively, and physically. This we can also look at as universal embodiment. Also find it interesting that when I come back to spinning poi like this after like 6 to like 12 months of not doing it whatsoever, I'm usually very spot on, even with my eyes closed. It's different from my skills with guitar and gujing. They require more intricate movements, kind of like we were talking about. Very opposite movements, very much not bilaterally symmetrical. That is more challenging for me. It's harder to get scales clean, like I have to practice through runs and things like that. Whereas it's very easy to get these moves clean quickly. Like it's easy to use momentum and force and use the larger portions of my motor cortex, and I think that's how to describe it. This insinuates that the more groups of muscles are involved, and perhaps the more wide and sweeping and symmetrical the motions, the more deeply ingrained and permanent behavioral memory they must become. Embrace this human perception vessel. Learn to love yourself. Get to know yourself. Really push yourself. Learn the limits of your skills and develop your talents. And get to know your mind. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations intentionally. And when you mess up, just apologize and learn from the mistake. Realize that this is a capacity that you currently lack in, and it's one that you can improve on, and try to do so. Remember, like Kant said, the individual has a duty to improve themselves, end quote, once they know they have the capacity and resources to do so. But I digress. One may think that viewing life through logic and determinism and causality may take away from one's ability to appreciate the arts and music and things like that, or just looking at life through the eyes of a scientist or a critical thinker takes away from one's ability to enjoy and integrate with life. But it's really the opposite. Like this, when we study anything, when we put forth effort into looking at things from a different angle, we gain a new angle with which to appreciate that thing. Unless we're coming at it from the complete wrong place, which is a place of negative criticism, and we're trying to find new ways to hate or judge things, which is definitely not the place to be coming from. And that's not really what, like, I don't see people that engage in the deterministic and scientific lifestyles or whatever, the ways of living that I've been describing this far. I don't see that. Like, I see them coming from the place of understanding and unity and wanting to connect with people and understand people, because you can't not. Like, how can you possibly study therapy and psychology and then not realize that so many people are being swept away by a million factors that are out of their control? Through open-minded forms of learning, we can come to appreciate the world's traditions that much more. We can gain a better picture of how cultures and traditions come to emerge. So, a universe awakening to itself, realizing that it is a biological, genetically influenced organism. Upon realizing this, one thing that the person or universal experiencing vessel would do would be to explore the limits of its abilities and explore its capacities. So, coming to deeply understand that our genetics and our biology and culture deeply impact our capacities and our abilities and talents. We would seek to improve on those things, but also recognize that we have that entire past to deal with. If we're like in our 30s or something and we're just learning this knowledge, or we're just coming to look at life this way, the responsible thing to do would be to get a DNA test, get some blood work done, things like that, and see just what, like, all the stats that you can get on your biological organism, your vessel, and what you can do to improve on that. Someone could try to get a record on their past, their education, and any psychological tests they've taken, and try to analyze the mind-body connection that they have. Theirs is unique. Everyone's is unique in one way or another. And so the only way that we're going to live a well-lived life, a fulfilled life, one that is filled with control and agency, is to examine the limits of our agency and examine deeply our past and our talents and what external things have contributed or diminished our talents and how we can improve on those. If we come to realize that we already have developed talents, we should improve on those talents, or we should run with that. Or if we want to develop new ones that we feel are in our capacity to do so, then we should do so. So we'd want to maximize our talents that are based around doing good or doing things that are positive to the rest of the world, and take up activities and diet, exercise, and sleep and things like that that contribute to the overall organism as a whole, the collective of this organism, and also integrate better with the collective of all organic life. This is what I would consider living a dutiful life. It is similar to what Kant said, the individual has a duty to improve themselves. Once you realize you have the capacity to improve on yourself, which we all do, you have a duty to take that up and to seek out the means that would help you achieve that better state of being. So every time we talk about universal embodiment and this idea of the universe experiencing and exploring itself through this human vessel and gaining insight on the world, this is also true for the human experience and the human introspection. Every time we realize or embody this happening, we are having a wisdom insight. Whenever we imagine a universe introspecting through us, we are also introspecting through us. We're also gaining this this enhancement of our introspective capacities and our ability to integrate better with our body and mind and the rest of the world. Now I should pause here and explain. In the book I talk about universal indifference as another way to embrace universal embodiment, as from another perspective the universe is entirely indifferent to its manifestations. And Camus got into this with his absurdism in The Myth of Sisyphus, and of course many nihilists and absurdists have taken this as far as it can be taken, but I have to ask, what does this philosophy serve them? Well, that's all for now. Thanks so much for sticking through the video. If you find this video valuable and want to show your appreciation, you can donate here. Viewers can access the Polymath Park Patreon here. Programs like this exist solely by donation, so feel free to contribute whatever you feel this video is worthy. Anything's appreciated.